Hey pups, RP here. Cartoons. The main icon of our childhoods. With shows like Rugrats, SpongeBob, codenamed Kids Next Door, Ed, Ed and Eddie, and many more we can name at the top of our heads, these cartoons always hold a special place in our hearts as children. Even today, some of us still like to go back in time while taking a trip down memory lane to watch some of these timeless classics. Hell, even some adult cartoons can have some good classics like the old Family Guy and older seasons of South Park. I don't even watch those shows, and I'm being honest here. But not all is sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, lollipops within these cartoons. There are some dark secrets hidden within them. Today for this special video, I'm counting down the top picks I've hand-chosen for the top 10 creepiest/scariest cartoon episodes, or cartoons in general. Plus, these are some of the shows and cartoons I grew up with. So if you have a creepy cartoon in mind, be sure to share it in the comments. Unfortunately, I can't and won't count any adult cartoons like Mr. Pickles or Family Guy, nor will I include anime or Pokemon on this list, mainly because of focusing on children's media only, and creepy anime episodes will have a list of its own in the future. Sorry adult cartoon fans, this girl's keeping it with the kid shows. With that being said, let's get to work. Fairly Odd Parents. Anyone here think that Butch Hartman had the inspiration from Home Alone with the traps and Stephen King's Pet Sematary with the zombie gerbil? Well, that's the case with me. When Timmy wishes his mom's garden would be more lively and grow, this wish, like many others Timmy makes, has consequences. In this case, Timmy's dead gerbil, Eddie, comes back to life with a vengeance, thinking it was Timmy's fault for his death, when in reality it was his parents who forgot to feed him while he was away at summer camp. Camp. Eddie tries to kill both Timmy's dad and mom. When Timmy admits his faults, the two make peace, then the end of the episode shows other zombified pets of Timmy's. Honestly, this episode wasn't as scary or disturbing when I first watched it, mostly because it still kept its cartoonish comedy. But now that I think of it and look at it closely, seeing it has some possible inspiration from Pet Sematary, I can honestly say that it's a little bit creepy. Okay, very creepy. And let me just say, I know the scandal Butch has been in with the Oxysis thing, however you pronounce that, but Mr. Hartman, if you made this episode out of the inspiration of Stephen King's Pet Sematary, you, sir, did a fine job of making it a kid-friendly one. Somewhat kid-friendly. Rugrats. I know what most of you are going to say.
Really, RP? Rugrats? Seriously?
Yes, I am very serious. There are some episodes of Rugrats that were actually scary and creepy, such as the incredibly shrieking babies, Chucky loses his glasses, and many more episodes just like that. But the ones we're focusing on for this list are The Mysterious Mr. Friend and Angelica's Worst Nightmare. I know I'm kind of cheating with this one, but my list, my videos, my channel, my rules. One of my actual favorite episodes of the show, for some reason. This episode definitely reminds me of Child's Play mixed in with Terminator. In the episode, Stu Pickles creates a new clown toy, Mr. Friend, whom the babies call Mr. Fiend, quote-unquote. And there's a reason for that. Mr. Friend was created to be a good influenced friend toy for children, but with the babies, it's one of the creepiest toys of all time, attempting to do some unknown act with the babies. And let's not forget to mention that Stu created an army of Mr. Friend dolls. Seriously, this thing is creepy. It's like the fandom from It and the fandom of Child's Play decided to create a ship between Chucky and Pennywise, and their child became that guy. Yeah, not joking here, people. Thankfully, near the end of the episode, all the other clown toys try to do the same, but the babies manage to fight them off. And then Angelica shows off her Mr. Friend doll at the end of the episode, with one more final scare. A match made in hell? Perhaps so. I don't know if the writers got the inspiration from Child's Play or not, but it looks more like a kid-friendly version of that. And I don't know about y'all, but like I said earlier, Mr. Friend reminds me of Pennywise the Clown from Stephen King's It. Again, that's just me. And this episode of Rugrats was pretty dang scary. A close second being Angelica's Worst Nightmare. In the episode, Drew and Charlotte give Angelica the news that they're going to have another baby, and she's going to be a big sister. Throughout the episode, It shows how Angelica feels about getting a new baby, with worries and fears that her parents are gonna have more time with the baby than her, as if they didn't spend much time with her already in the show. And later that night, she ends up having a literal nightmare about the new baby. With the baby growing to the size of a monster and eating her, it's pretty unsettling. Once Angelica wakes up and expresses her fears to her father, Drew proclaims that even with a new baby, he and Charlotte will still love her no matter what. It's later revealed that Charlotte had a miscarriage, and Angelica no longer has worries and fears of being forgotten and unloved. Look, I know Angelica is my ultimate least favorite character in the show, but you gotta understand where she's coming from on this. I mean, you've probably felt the same way too when your parents announced they were having a new baby, and the scenes and imagery in the episode is pretty damn scary to say the least. I wanted to add in the
I'm not Tommy, I'm not Stu
moments from In the Dreamtime on the list, but it didn't have that much of an effect on me as a kid. But trust me, these episodes and the entry before it are just the tip of the iceberg. ScoobyDoo. Surprised to see ScoobyDoo on this list? I talk about the Scooby Natural episode this time around, unfortunately. Of course, this does involve the episode Sam and Dean were investigating in. A Night of Fright is no delight. The episode is about Scooby spending the night at the Colonel's house, and of course, the house is haunted by giggling green ghosts. I don't know what it is about them, but they just give off a very uncomfortable vibe whenever they're on screen. Sure, their designs are cool and even more badass than Scooby Natural, but holy crap were these guys creepy. Of course, they turn out to be the lawyers, creeps, and crawls, who just wanted the cash like all the other bad guys in Scooby-Doo. But their laughs, the chains, their appearance, it's pretty disturbing for a kids show like Scooby-Doo. Adventure Time. You may be thinking that I'm talking about the Nightosphere episodes. Well, while those episodes are especially creepy in their own way, I'm focusing more on the Blank-Eyed Girls episode. In the episode, Finn and Jake hear about a story about the Blank-Eyed Girls. They're ghost girls who look like Samara from The Ring. As it turns out, the girls were these spirit things. I mean, the endings are metaphorically beautiful and all, but just what the frick are these things? There are plenty more scary, creepy, and disturbing moments in Adventure Time, and the show itself was a rather unique cartoon that drew in a lot of fans and is well loved and enjoyed, but The Blank-Eyed Girls is by far, in my opinion, the creepiest episode in the series. SpongeBob SquarePants. You'd think a silly and fun cartoon like SpongeBob would never have creepy and scary moments, right? Wrong. The few episodes I chose for this entry are I Was a Teenage Gary, The Graveyard Shift, and Wormy. I Was a Teenage Gary was an episode involving SpongeBob leaving Squidward in charge of taking care of his pet snail Gary, while SpongeBob goes to a jellyfish convention with Patrick, which goes as you would expect it to. Later in the episode, SpongeBob is given a snail plasma injection by the vet and asks Squidward to do so, causing Squidward to miss Gary and inject SpongeBob instead. Later that night, SpongeBob goes through a horrific and painful-looking transformation from the snail plasma. Squidward eventually goes through the same thing, but it isn't really shown in the episode itself. Possibly due to the transformation scene being shown in a rough draft, but was cut at the last minute, pre-production of the episode. SpongeBob and Squidward are now living their lives as snails with Gary. Or so it seems. The episode itself actually gave me a nightmare one time, involving two of the Sesame Street characters, Bert and Ernie, with Bert somehow having the body of a spider, and Ernie understandably freaking out. In a scene that was similarly played in the episode with SpongeBob entering Squidward's house, and Squidward also understandably freaking out. How I had a weird fever dream nightmare like that, and why I remember it is beyond even myself. The Graveyard Shift was one that was slightly more comedic than I Was a Teenage Gary. Mr. Krabs decides to leave the Krusty Krab open 24 hours a day, which will later be revisited in Fear of the Krabby Patty, with SpongeBob being excited for the night shift, while Squidward isn't too pleased and decides to scare SpongeBob with the story of the hash-slinging slasher. With it being a made-up story until later in the episode, everything plays out as Squidward describes in the story, the phone ringing and no one being there, the lights flickering on and off, and of course, the final nail in the coffin, the supposed ghost murderer entering the restaurant. haunting and possibly about to cause harm to Squidward and SpongeBob, and is later revealed to be a random fish wanting to apply for a fry cook job at the Krusty Krab, and Nosferatu later revealed to be the one flickering the lights as a comedic ending to a slightly scary episode. I always thought the Nosferatu bit was funny, but the story itself with a hash-slinging slasher and the events from the story occurring IRL was pretty unsettling. I don't even want to think about how the hash-slinging slasher would have been real in the episode. And finally, Wormy. Dear God, did this episode freak me out as a kid. In the episode, Cindy leaves SpongeBob and Patrick to take care of her pets, and they find Wormy, who is not only the cutest thing in the whole freaking world, but is also not a worm, but a caterpillar, and they play with him all day long, and later when they leave, Wormy goes through metamorphosis. The next day when SpongeBob and Patrick find Wormy's cocoon, believing it to be a corpse, the butterfly escapes the jar, and, well, this happens. Then it happens again. And again, for a third and thankfully final time in the episode. You can see why this episode freaked out a lot of kids and fans. Heck, this still creeps me out even as a full-grown woman, and I absolutely hate bugs, whether they're up close and personal or not, including spiders, even though they aren't classified as bugs. Believe it or not, the close-up was actually from Bill Nye the Science Guy, and wasn't a butterfly at all, but in fact a horsefly. But Jeebus Crispies, why did the writers and creators think it was a good idea? Once is already enough, but why 2 more times? Hell, why even 1? I guess we'll never know, and I don't think I want to. The Powerpuff Girls. Ever since I was a little girl, I've always loved the Powerpuff Girls. While some girls want to be princesses, I wanted to be a Powerpuff Girl, so I could hang out with Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, and didn't think twice about scary moments involving the cartoon. Yet again, like with SpongeBob, I was wrong. I was horribly wrong. The 2 episodes I'll mention are Speed Demon and Abracadabra, or Cadaver. Speed Demon has the girls racing from school to home, which gets pretty intense. The girls then time travel 50 years into the future with a post-apocalyptic Townsville, with Professor Utonium calling the girls a figment of his imagination, Miss Billum gone completely crazy after the mayor's demise, and a senile Miss Keene just standing there, waving and repeating the same sentence. Him then arrives saying everything went to heck, quote-unquote, when the girls abandon Townsville. While the girls proceed to beat the living crap out of him, he just gets up and brushes it off like it's nothing, when he reveals his true, hellish, and admittedly badass form. He doesn't beat up the girls like we know and expect him to, but he uses the now senile and elderly classmates saying, "You did this," and "It's your fault," with the girls having an emotional breakdown and time traveling back to their own time. The day is saved and the vacation is cancelled. If we're being honest here, the episode was very depressing, knowing the girls' lives depend on Townsville's, and they can't even take a vacation, and they always have to defend people from villains like him, the devil himself. Thankfully, Abracadabra is more light, shall I say. The episode starts off with the mayor telling a story of a magician named Allusion, who appears to be an amazing one at that, until he picks a little girl to be his assistant. Need I mention she looks highly similar to the Powerpuff Girls, and makes her bear disappear. The now heartbroken girl reveals him to be a fraud, and during the act, he accidentally trips and falls into a spiked case. Afterwards, the mayor, unsurprisingly, has a theater building destroyed, causing Al's spiked coffin to be opened, and the beast is unleashed. Allusion, now renamed Abracadabra, wreaks havoc upon Townsville with what I like to call zombie magic. Meanwhile, the girls have been ironically watching a zombie movie when they get a call from the mayor about the whole ordeal. Once they arrive, Al mistakes Blossom for that same girl that exposed him years ago. And now, revenge! Can I just say I like how he says that? When he hypnotizes Blossom, he puts Buttercup and Bubbles in some of the most dangerous magic acts, such as the water bag and the saw in half trick. Al then mummifies the hypnotized Blossom and throws her into the spiked case. Thankfully, the zombie owl was actually Blossom in disguise, and Buttercup and Bubbles were 100% a-okay, with Al being put back where he belonged. To be honest, both episodes were pretty frightening in their own way. With Speed Demon, it was both scary and disturbing, knowing that if the girls even so little as leave Townsville for an hour, him could easily take over in the blink of an eye. Abracadabra had a zombie who had a vengeance upon Townsville and used zombie magic and, yeah, that's it. Samurai Jack. I've only watched this cartoon a few times in my younger years, but if you remember watching this episode as a kid, then you know that the show immediately went into a Japanese horror story. Normally Samurai Jack and its episodes are about him beating up bad guys and monsters and even Aku, but not even the comedic Lord of Darkness and shapeshifting has nothing on this, even if this episode was aired in season 5 on Adult Swim. Jack ends up at a haunted house with horrific images after following a little girl. When he enters the room with family that invite him in, he gets a little wary at first, but then ends up relaxing until 3 of the family members have their eyes rolled in the back of their heads and start foaming at the mouth to reveal the demon. While Aku has a lot of comedy, even when fighting Samurai Jack, this one feels like a real demon from a horror film. We don't know the true origins of this monster, nor do we know where he's coming from. Could Aku possibly have made this demon somehow? Or is it something more? Thankfully, our favorite samurai knows how to beat the crap out of the demon, so the fact that it plays off like an actual scary movie is just, well, creepy. You would think that this episode was a lost episode creepypasta, but it's an actual episode. All real, baby. Well, not IRL real, but a real episode in the season, in the cartoon. Yeah. Invader Zim. Invader Zim was a very unique show that aired on Nickelodeon, which some people question why Nick aired this show at all, and will mistake it for a show on Cartoon Network. There's plenty of creepy episodes in the show, but none more as this one, The Dark Harvest. The Dark Harvest is creepy and scary for 2 reasons. The episode shows Zim going to the nurse's office when he gets a case of head pigeons, and finds none of his organs are similar to a human's, and fears that he'll be experimented on, so he decides to steal organs from the other humans in the school, replacing their organs with inanimate objects, turning him into an obese blob filled with fluids and intestines, about ready to explode. It's surprising that this episode even aired on Nickelodeon to begin with. It even played off like a horror movie in one scene, which is already unsettling enough due to the theme of the episode. And not to mention that the then 16-year-old Scott Dulesky murdered his neighbor Pamela Vitale, saying he was fascinated with organs, and made a lot of violent comments that I can't even repeat, and added in the Dark Harvest episode as a joke, quote-unquote. Whether or not the episode did inspire someone to become a psychopathic murderer is unknown, due to the lack of evidence given, but it doesn't help that Scott already had these dark thoughts in his mind. Regardless, the episode is truly one of terror, disgust, and overall what true fear and horror can do in a kids show, and how far the creators can take it. Steven Universe. What's so dark about a colorful show like Steven Universe? A lot. From the hospital episode, to Jasper's corruption, to that weird fever dreamish Frybo episode. The episode itself may seem colorful and childish on the outside, but that isn't the case with this show, and the series finale, Change Your Mind, is no exception to that rule. Immediately when we see White Diamond, we automatically know there's something wrong and off-fitting about her. The fact that she uses other gems, including her diamond sisters and Steven's gem family, as her personal puppets, and draining them from their personalities, erasing who they truly are, and giving them her dead perfectionist personalities, just wrong! A lot of people compare White and Pink's relationship to one that is abusive, and I can see why. Using Steven's friends against him, locking him in a room when he and Connie fused, and the creepier part of it all, she straight up performs open gem surgery on Steven. Thankfully, Steven and his gem reunite, and comes to terms on who he is, and White Diamond does have a change of mind, but not even that can change my mind about her. Just her appearance and the fact that she brainwashes gems into her view of what she wants everyone to be, and using other gems as her puppets, just... jeez. She still freaks me out, even after she had a change of heart and a change of mind. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Now, I understand that the show itself is dark and creepy. Some people pick moments like the CGI fetus from hell, Freaky Fred, or Keem Ramsey's with the infamous "Return the slab" quote. But the episode I chose is The Mask. What makes this episode so scary and creepy is that it has a sense of reality involving domestic abuse. The episode starts off with a masked woman named Kitty saying all dogs are evil. Kinda makes you think of those feminist extremists who say all men are evil, and proceeds to beat the crap out of Courage. Courage thinking Kitty's a monster after she reveals to be, well, a cat. Seeing as cat is evil, he immediately takes action on finding Kitty's friend Bunny and saves his owners. He's a good boy. He then heads to where Bunny and her abusive boyfriend Mad Dog is. When Bunny tries to escape, she hesitates whether or not she should, which is very common among abuse victims. Thankfully, Courage comes to the rescue and helps Bunny reunite with Kitty. The episode itself portrayed it very well, and with a happy ending nonetheless, which is what we all hope for, especially to those who aren't in the same relationship as Bunny was. With Bunny and Kitty happily reunited, Mad Dog defeated, Courage has saved the lives of his owners and the lives of two best friends. Courage is a true definition of what bravery is. Doing what's right, and doing what you have to, even if you're scared. Courage the Cowardly Dog is a brave soul and a good boy. I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel to join the Pupper Pack today. If you want to support me and get specialized rewards, be sure to become a patron to my Patreon today. As always, I'll see you in the next one, pups.